From the thrilling pages of the DC comic,
Faster than a speeding bullet.
a myth is forged.
More powerful than a locomotive.
A hero takes flight.
Able to leap tall buildings at a single bound. This amazing stranger from the planet Krypton, the Man of Steel. Superman.
Welcome to our latest episode of Superman Lives. I'm Chris Moe.
And I am Michael Kreitzer.
And we are very glad to be with you. And we have to say that this is take 2 of episode 9 of Superman Lives. We recorded, we thought, a great episode. And thanks to Adobe Audition, we don't have it. It's gone. And we both really are blaming Hank Henshaw, who has a control over electronics, and so we think that maybe he's in our system.
But this is how dedicated we are to this, to the podcast, and to you, the listeners, to do this again on the same day. So.
That's right, absolutely. We want to make sure that we don't deprive you of an episode of Superman Lives, because we could wait, but we feel like this, you deserve it, and so too this event, Superman Reborn, which launches on Wednesday. So we wanted to get this in before, and then we're going to try and come back either midstream or at the end of Superman Reborn and talk about all the developments that, we're going to kind of give our personal hopes, and then we're going to come back and talk about how much of that, if any, happened. And I think a lot of it will. I think it's going to be a real treat for us.
Yeah.
And we'll talk more about that. So what's going on in your neck of the woods, Michael?
Oh, not much. Just following the comics and trying to catch up on television, and that's about it. It's nice to come away from the shop each week with a big stack that I have to go and then hide from my wife, so she thinks they're old comics and not new ones that I bought. But it's still nice to have them.
Yes, it is. It's just it hasn't happened to me it was at least a solid decade since I've been reading this many titles. Mm-hmm. And I have dropped a couple recently, but it hasn't been quality. It's just been interest or really affordability,
Yeah.
So, and that is something we didn't talk about the last time, but we're finding that DC is going to be going up $1 on its monthly books.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay,
yeah.
Wow.
So bi-monthly the bi-monthlies will continue to be, well, I guess it wouldn't be bi-monthly. Twice monthlies will continue to be $2.99, which is fantastic, and then the monthlies will go up to $3.99. So I'm not sure. I guess they have to make money somewhere. I still honestly think I got an eBay order in today of these beautiful digests, which I think could be the future of comic books if they would only use them, both DC and Marvel. These are from like the late 70s and 80s, and they're all Superman digests that I got a lot of, and they are on newsprint. And I know probably today's audience would say newsprint, or but I don't think it would be that big of a deal if you put it on just a little bit cheaper than the paper stock we have and drive it down another $1.
Yeah, I have the Archie digest like that, and they're perfect. The readability is wonderful. The color quality is great. Yeah, and then they're newsprint as well. So yeah, that's a great option to go.
How much are those for a digest?
Oh, let me see. Actually, wow, they must have gone up. I'm looking at it now. It's $6.99 for a digest. So never mind. Don't take this as an example, DC.
Well, but that's all new content, right? That's their main way of putting out this material?
Actually, no. It does include, because Archie just recently did that reboot where Mark Waid is kind of revamping everything. So the digest is the only place you will get some new stories for the classic style, but then they also cobble together a lot of classic stories, period.
Okay.
Stuff like that. So,
but it's more than one story. So I guess
it's actually quite a good chunk of comic.
So you're getting your money's worth there.
That's true. Yeah, I didn't think about that. You're right.
But if DC were to do, and that's where I think it would be cost prohibitive, is if they made it all new content. So maybe they put one new story to incentivize people who want to see newer stuff, and then they put the classics in there, some classic stories. And I just think that would sell tremendously if you put it.
Because, I don't know if you've seen them in your stores down there, but they've got in the Walmarts here, they're starting to have them where they'll put like 5 DC comics in a plastic shrink wrap, and you can buy it for like $4 or something. But you don't know what you're getting other than the one that's on the cover. But it could be comics from any point in the DC history, but you're going to get like 5 DC comics in this bundle for $4 or $5 or whatever it is. Have you seen those?
I have seen them. I haven't bought any. Have you?
I bought one that had the Flash Rebirth on the front because I thought, well, that's cool. I don't actually own that one. I've been reading that one online. The Flash Rebirth, it was great to have that one. The ones inside ended up being New 52 stuff that I didn't care for. Well,
that's when I saw the Rebirth books, I was really excited. In fact, the first time that I saw it, and for $5 you get 5 comics, I think,
something like that.
Like that. So that's a really great deal when you consider how much they are individually. And I thought, okay, if this is all Rebirth, this is phenomenal. But then I began to wonder, well, how do we know it's not? Because some of them did have Justice League 1 it was New 52. So I thought, I don't want to take a shot, and I already have all these Rebirth books, so I'm not going to buy it. But I thought this, if it was more, at our stores, they're in the collectible aisle.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many people, it is an impulse buy section, but to me it's very niche. Like, unless you're going to look for vinyl collectible figures, you're not going to come across them. But
never underestimate the allure of the blind bag.
That's true.
It could be anything.
I'm waiting for those Mad Balls. Have you seen? You remember Mad Balls when we were kids?
I do remember those. Wow, this is a flashback.
Yeah, I love them. I still have the giant eyeball, Oculus Orbis,
nice,
sitting on my bookcase over there. And they've remade them. They've made giant ones, and then they're making blind bag minis.
I did not know that. That's cool.
I want to get those because that's just the right size and to collect. And so I was looking for those, and I saw some of these, and I think Marvel has some too. A couple of their bags of comics. But I just think if they did digests and they put them right next to Cosmo or right next to those little dolls that your kids already have 30 of, but they want you to buy them another one, or next to the hand sanitizer, I think while kids are bothering their parents in the checkout lane, you could say, oh, hey, read this, because it's a classic comic book. Or maybe they would say, hey, look, there's Captain America. I like the movie. I just think it would be, to me, it's a win-win. Yeah. And then if you made it collectible somehow, you'd have the older readers who already have the reprints, the originals, but then they would say, oh, I need to collect this as well. So I actually emailed DC Entertainment about a month ago with that suggestion and have not, unsurprisingly, have not heard back. But my comic book local comic book shop owner encouraged me, because I asked her what she thought. Would that help the industry? Would it hurt it? And she thought that it couldn't hurt to suggest it to DC. And she thought that maybe it would get more people into her shop. And I thought synergy would be to get your local comic book shop to be able to get some copies of these and stamp their, or even if DC would publish the address of the local comic shops by region, and then that, but I don't know if that's maybe too labor intensive for them. So
I don't know,
but I think that would be great. It's the only way we're going to really bring this, we're going to save, I think, the medium. Otherwise, my personal prediction is in about 20 years, if not less, we'll see digital only and then print on demand. There's just not going to be a market for it,
Yeah.
Sadly
that's sad. Yeah.
So, we're talking of happier things, more hopeful things in this episode. We are going to be our usual super news, and then we're going to get into Superman Reborn, which both Michael and I, if you've listened at all, we're super excited about this. And we're going to break down some of that. We're going to talk about the New 52 Superman, something we've never done before on this show. But we're going to talk about the positives that, if a lot of theories are indicating this, if we're looking at a merged history that will include whoever the New 52 Superman turns out to be, if his history is merged with our pre-Flashpoint guy, then there are some things in there that were actually good. The stuff done by Grant Morrison in action is really the only good stuff. And so it would be neat to see some of that fitted in there, alongside the stuff. And again, like we said when we recorded before, we want 95% pre-Flashpoint and 5% New 52, and that I think is fair because there's 95% good stuff, and then there's about 5% of stuff from Morrison's action run that you would want to see. So we're going to dive into that. We're going to take a break now. When we get back, we will get right into Super News.
Attention, Superman fans! Superman glasses are coming to Taco Bell.
That's right. Taco Bell is offering Superman glasses.
With exciting scenes from the movie. There's 6 of them. Every time you buy a medium-sized Pepsi-Cola, you can buy a Superman glass. But supplies are limited, so hurry down to your Taco Bell and start your own collection of Superman glasses.
Superman glasses, now only at Taco Bell.
All right, so we're back. So as we alluded to here, DC TV, I have been negligent. I have not caught up. And I got to just admit this, before we came back to record again, I was watching Smallville because I just finally started, now that it's on Hulu. We're watching it, and my girls love Smallville. So I feel good about them watching that. Some of the stuff in Supergirl recently, after the Superman episodes, I kind of thought, I don't know that I want them to see that. Yeah. And so they really lost track with The Flash quite a while back. So, but they enjoy Smallville. So I'm watching old stuff instead of catching up on the new stuff. How about you?
That's really cool. Well, I'm glad you mentioned Smallville because, me, of course, I'm also very far behind, and I've gotten too far behind to catch up on the apps. I know CW app allows you to watch like the previous 5 episodes or whatever. So I'm now having to wait for. They've got a new deal with Netflix now, where at the end of these current seasons of the CW shows, 1 week after that, they'll be on Netflix. So you no longer have to wait like 3 days before the next season starts to air before you actually get the previous one on Netflix and try to catch up and, marathon them or whatever. So
right.
I will be catching up soon via that avenue. But one of the big news, part of the big news, of course, there's a lot of things like Terry Hatcher's coming to Supergirl as a villain. That's going to be fun. But they recently featured Mixuspit, is how I always pronounce it. But I also know some very stubborn people say it's Mixapitalik or whatever. So, but this iconic fan favorite villain was previously on Supergirl, and you and I haven't seen it. We've seen the previews of the show, and all we know that is we don't have a little bald imp, not the Gilbert Godfrey type or nothing like that. Now he's got to be the CW version, so it's sexy Mixuspit,
wow.
Sexy Mixie here.
There's an image.
Yeah, I know, exactly. So since I haven't seen it, though, I'm actually curious from the fans, so any listeners who do follow, I know Ben follows it, and some people on our Iconic Superman page, anyone who follows Supergirl and you've seen the episode before us, let us know in the comments of wherever you happen to be listening to this podcast and what you think, and did they do a good job with it overall? Does it need to be kind of back to the drawing board or whatever? But I was... the Smallville connection I thought of was that I remembered too, as you were talking about that. Do you remember the version they did of Mixapitalik on Smallville? He was like a European transfer student or something. Do you remember that?
I think I at that point I had stopped watching, but I remember seeing clips here and there.
Yeah. And it was weird. Like points for creativity, but it was nothing like Mixuspit is supposed to be. And he just had this the power of when he would speak something, he could kind of make you do it, almost like the Purple Man, from Jessica Jones or something.
Right.
But yeah, the big deal was Clark was actually on the football at that point, and he was making Clark fumble or stumble and stuff like that, so he could kind of throw the game and get some money from bets or something like that. That's how they found out that something was going on, because Clark never stumbles, Right. But yeah, I just thought of, as much as I'm thinking, I don't know about that Supergirl take on Mixapitalik, and then I'm thinking it out to the Smallville one, which, I love Smallville, but I'm thinking, well, it was closer to the character than that, at least. He is an imp from the 5th dimension, so.
Right, and it's amazing because I'm guessing the reason they did that is we forget how much more faithful things have been with comic book adaptations since Smallville. In just probably 5 or 10 years, there's been more of an adherence to what is in the comics. So maybe those Smallville guys were thinking, well, we can't really do Imp from the 5th dimension because nobody will buy that, but they'll buy this probability thing or whatever this guy can do. And then now we've reached a point where people are like, yeah, why not? We can have multiverse stuff going on. So a 5th dimensional imp. So that's cool that we see that evolution, but I do like the creativity there. I like that that they came up with that idea. And this is going to seem like a non sequitur, but the Flash TV show, even though this is not a Flash podcast, the original Flash TV show in the 90s was super faithful to the comics.
Absolutely.
Which was rare for the time. So I guess there are times every once in a while where you get a rarity there. But
well, I'm trying to think, was there anything DC TV related between the Superboy series in the 80s and the Flash in the 90s?
No, I think that was the next one. I think it was.
So that is kind of a logical step, coming from Superboy, because Superboy was the first show that showed us Superman fighting supervillains, right? I mean, he was no longer just gangsters. It was actually, he had Bizarro and he had Mixu-Spit and all these other characters on there. So
yeah. I need to go back and watch that. And we should definitely do an episode on it, because I caught them here and there. It was in syndication, so I never knew when it was on. But I've read more about it than I've watched, and I need to definitely maybe get the season sets. I understand they're super cheap now.
Oh yeah, I haven't checked into that. That's cool.
Yeah, so that's good to know. And I don't think they're streaming anywhere. Warner Brothers really, if anybody has a library, and this is a dig at CBS and what they're going to try to do with Star Trek, if anybody has a library to build a streaming service, it's Warner Brothers. And yet they're kind of divvying it up. On Netflix, I can watch Justice League and Justice League Unlimited and Young Justice, but then through Amazon Prime, I can watch the Batman seasons of the animated series and Superman the animated series. So why is that not all on one platform? Because I would pay for that. I mean, that I know is quality, and there's a huge library there. If I could watch Super Friends, if I could watch Superboy, if I could watch all the Chris Reeve Superman movies, and if I could watch the Batman movies that are good, and that would be.
And I'd even be willing to pay more than the average subscription service, knowing that I do have all of that right there from multiple other outlets.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm kind of curious as to why they don't do that. Because they're not as far as I know, you can't catch them on television right now.
I don't think so.
Timverse stuff. So, so anything else? I mean, we talked about this earlier. I saw just a clip of one episode, and it showed, I think it was Mon-El wearing a version of the Superman uniform, but of course it could have been Mixu-Spitalik. I don't know, because I didn't watch beyond that one clip. So is there anything else interesting as far as what's going on in Flash? Have you kept up with that? I'm
kind of OCD about my viewing. So since all these shows are linked to the same universe, I can't allow myself to get too far ahead in one or the other. I'm having to balance and watch everything at the same time. So I don't know, but from my friends, who are just avid, dyed-in-the-wool Flash fans, they say that this season, it started out because of course at the end of the last season, that's when he went back in time anyway and just saved his mother. And it felt like honestly, it felt like a slap in the face for fans of that season who, stuck with the show, because this was, the big thing they built his character on, that he was self-sacrificing and all of that. And then for him just to run and do it anyway at the end of the season, even if in this season they do kind of develop that into a wonderful character developing moment, it was really just thrown in very cheaply at the end of the last season. I felt like. So apparently this season starts out a little rough, but then jumps into it and really gets worth it. I've heard anyway.
Yeah, I've only seen up to the episode. The crossover is kind of where I broke with all the shows, because that's where it was when I stopped watching. But yeah, it was really kind of a weak start, but it had gotten better. One of the great moments was having Jay Garrick pull Barry out of the timeline and go, "Hey, you need to stop rebooting things." It was that was a neat moment. And anytime you see Jay Garrick, I mean, that was just a great highlight there. And so since we've last done an episode, did I understand correctly that we're getting a Black Lightning series?
Yes, we were. So Black Lightning is going to be an actual live action series on the CW. So they actually are going to, if I can say the word actually anymore, they are going to, because there's been a lot of debate. Do they have enough now? Could they really, handle doing another one? Could the CW survive under that? And they've decided, so Black Lightning is going to happen. And apparently this one's going to be when he's a little bit older. So it's no longer going to be an origin story or the young, angsty kind of thing. Apparently he's older and he's actually retired, but something happens with his daughter to pull him back into the hero gig. And that's going to take place in the CW universe. So there's that. In terms of the CWC, the website that's given us a lot of great animation, we do have another season's going to be coming of Vixen. They're also greenlit 2 series, one for Constantine, because he's been adopted into the universe now, and then one for the Ray. which I don't know much about him. I know he's kind of coming into the comics now, in the JLA, trying to get a little bit more exposure or whatever, but I don't know a lot about that character, how they're going to approach that on the animated series, but that's all part of the same Supergirl universe.
Okay, so that's all on her Earth, I guess, or
I don't know what's going to be on her Earth. I mean, of course, Constantine is on Arrow's Earth. I don't know if the Ray might be on her Earth or not. I'm not quite sure about that.
And then I wonder where Black Lightning is, because from what I recall with the Flash, and Supergirl, other than Superman, were there any other superheroes? I don't recall that they ever touched on that.
On Supergirl's universe?
Yeah, I think Superman was it, right?
Yeah, because when Flash met her, he was shooting off all these names that she didn't even know a version of them or anything. Right. So yeah, I think Superman might be it. Okay. Of course, they have alluded to Batman a couple of times, right. Just kind of covertly, and then there's Martian Manhunter, of course. So
that's true. Yeah, I wish we could see Batman, even just Bruce Wayne.
Yeah,
it's such a shame that. But he's the cash cow, so they feel like they have to protect it.
Yeah.
Which brings us to our next topic. This time, TV. We move on from TV to the Snyderverse. So the latest is, and I've really enjoyed watching this unfold over the last, I guess, month or so, The Batman, which was going to be written by Jeff Johns and Ben Affleck. He was going to direct it, dropped out of directing. Then the rumors, Bleeding Cool, The Outhouse, they were all saying he's not even going to be in it now. He doesn't want to be Batman anymore. And then Matt Reeves was among directors who were being approached, and none of them wanted to do it, which who could blame them? Why would you tie that albatross around your neck and destroy your career? And I really think that's what's going to happen to Ben Affleck. And in hindsight, he had that wonderful momentum after he got the Academy Award or the nomination. I forget if he won. And now he's kind of, I think, really being dragged down. And then Matt Reeves said no. Now Matt Reeves is going to direct, allegedly, The Batman, which will allegedly star Ben Affleck. We don't even know if this movie will be made. But everybody, as we talked about before, is so excited. And, of course, as you mentioned, we're going to get a Nightwing movie.
Well, they've said they're going to do a Nightwing movie. They say a lot of things.
Yeah,
and I think it's very conveniently timed that they would say a bunch of stuff like this around this time period. Because I mean, Warner Brothers, they've got to just be sweating buckets over there all the time with all this, because I mean, they know on some level the mistakes and the horrible decisions they've made, but they don't know it enough because they're determined to put their head down and bull through it and not reboot or not really fix anything. So yeah, I mean, it's very convenient that, oh, hey, a Nightwing series is going to be, or a Nightwing film is going to be released, and that's a key strategic thing to drop, because Nightwing himself is so lighthearted. I mean, this is Dick Grayson. You cannot do the heavy, morose Dick Grayson. The New 52 tried, and it didn't even really sell there. So to drop that, really tries to, see everybody, the DCU, the Snyderverse is going to lighten up now, and as you and I have said many times, though, you can't return to the iconic on that foundation if you continue to build on that, unless, as you said, they do something brilliant like the Rebirth time event or whatever. Right,
which would be the only way. And even then, we're saddled with these actors. And, I mean, outside of Jeremy Irons, I'm not impressed with the people they've chosen,
Yeah.
I liked Henry Cavill for a while until I saw Man of Steel. And there were rumors he was interested in James Bond for a while. I'll give you can have him for James Bond. And give us somebody else for the role of Superman,
I think it's important for Superman. No, sorry, did I cut you off?
No, go ahead.
I think it's important for Superman to have a specific. Any actor who plays him needs to have a specific range of emotion. But the most important emotion that should have is the actor should be able to express confidence without arrogance. Right. And I've never seen Cavill be able to do that. He can smile. When he smiles, he's very arrogant. When he's not smiling, he's very angst-ridden and depressed. Yeah. And I haven't seen him exhibit, that middle range where Superman really should be the strongest. So, I mean, do you agree with that in terms of the actors who portray the character?
Completely. It's kind of like what Grant Morrison talked about when he went to the con. I don't know if you're familiar with this story. He went to a con one year, and he was with Mark Waid, and this is pre-All-Star. And I think they were talking about their ideas for the alleged Superman 2000 reboot, which didn't happen because DC didn't let them do it. But they see this guy in cosplay walk up, and he came to talk to them dressed like Superman. And Morrison especially was stunned by how this guy carried himself, because he didn't have his hands, his fists on his hips. He wasn't standing there in that classic pose. He had one leg drawn up, and he was leaning on it, and he was very much at ease and very confident, but in this very relaxed kind of, I'm Superman. I have nothing to be angst-ridden about. I have nothing to be worried about, protective about, necessarily defensive. I'm Superman. And and he said that's what inspired his take on All-Star Superman, which is where the image of Superman sitting on a cloud, kind of looking behind him, he said that came from that moment. So yeah, I think every actor who plays Superman should exude that.
Yeah, could you imagine being that guy, knowing that you inspired All-Star Superman?
I know, that's pretty amazing. I wonder if he, I don't know if he gets a credit in maybe like the Absolute Edition, because I don't have it yet.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, and even Wade has said that it was just kind of this Zen moment. Morrison, being Morrison, said it was like a tulpa. It was like Superman had come to life.
That's awesome.
And walked in, and they had this conversation. And there are pictures, you can find them online. If I find them, I'll put them on the Iconic Superman page.
That'd be great.
Yeah, it's just one of those wonderful moments. And yeah, as far as I can think of, I mean, George Reeves had it. George Reeves was not a guy who, even bursting through a wall, he didn't look angry. He just kind of, he was there to take care of business. Christopher Reeve could just stand there and say, I'm a friend. And then when he goes fly with Lois, I just watched Superman the movie again last weekend. And
oh, nice.
Man, it was just so great.
Yeah.
And he just had that relaxed quality, again, because he has all this power. And so he doesn't have to be angst-ridden,
or arrogant,
and
lording it over anyone.
Right. And even in Smallville, where there's some teen angst, you don't see Clark's pretty at ease. When he's in a frame, he's the most centered person in there. So
yeah, very warm.
Yeah, and Cavill just always looks either constipated or bored. I think those are his two emotions. That he's even in that scene in Batfleck v Not So Superman, which this was one thing I think they got right, was when they had Amy Adams, and you got a little side boob there in the image when she's in the bathtub. Even when he's going into a bathtub with a naked Amy Adams, he doesn't look happy. I mean, what's wrong with you? You are an alien, So I don't know. I don't get the guy. I don't know how he got picked.
Yeah.
What I wish would have happened, because we know that he did audition for Superman Returns. If he would have been Superman in that movie, maybe we would have got Routh. But then again, Routh would have had to play, Not So Superman. So.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And Routh also had the same at ease quality, and he has it as Ray Palmer too. So.
I really think that Snyder looks more towards the physique, because he, as everyone says, he is more of a visual. He's not a storyteller. He's a presenter of visuals, and we know that he's just obsessed with the tricked out male physique. I mean, in all of his films, that's just a obsession that he has. And I think Cavill was probably just willing to get that bulk on, and he probably just loved that or something. I don't know.
Yeah, and I've never really cared for the bodybuilder Superman. I mean, it depends on the artist, and it can work sometimes. Like, for example, Ed McGuinness pulls it off. And that's his style. It's very exaggerated. But then you look at Christopher Reeve, you look at Brandon Routh, you look at George Reeves. These guys weren't rippling through their suits.
Yeah.
Because that's not the source of their power. So
yeah, exactly.
Well, we are going to, unfortunately, also get Justice League, and new pictures of that are released every day. And since I don't want early blindness, I'm already very close to blindness as it is with my natural eyesight. I don't look at any of that.
No.
And the word on the street, rumor-wise, is that we are going to have two more failures. One being Justice League, and the other being Wonder Woman. Have you read that, heard that as well?
I have. I've heard that, and of course the machine to counteract those rumors and go against it, of course, is running high too. But at this point, it's just a logical deduction. I mean, you don't even need valid rumors from valid sources at this point. It's just sort of look at the evidence, look at the track record, and look at how they're making these films right now. They're not doing anything different. They're not giving they're trying to slap some band-aids over a situation that needs to be, you got to thoroughly cleanse that wound. You can't just slap a band-aid on it.
Yeah, I think you need to put this horse down. And it's like they're trying, let's give it a bionic leg or let's put it in a splint. No. It needs a bullet to the head. And I'm sorry to say that. But my dad put down many horses growing up. And so they're all buried out by the barn. And sometimes that's what you got to do. I would gladly do it. I would be glad to do that, and I don't believe in killing. But this needs to be killed.
Yeah.
And like we talked about earlier today, there are people who just still want to think, oh, well, a Nightwing movie is going to fix everything, or that'll be better than everything else. And like you were saying, what precedent have we had that indicates it would be any different than what we've already had? There's nothing.
I know.
You know, it's highly frustrating, and it's because I'm such a big fan. Because I've gotten in this argument. I've actually had people say, if you were a real true fan of these characters, you would want to see them on the screen no matter what. No,
that's ridiculous.
Yeah, that doesn't follow at all. Because I'm a fan of the real character, I want to see them done correctly or not at all.
Yeah, they matter to you.
Right.
It's important that they get it right. That's just, what kind of reasoning is that? Oh my gosh.
It's no reasoning at all. I think it's some kind of. There's a part of these people's brain missing, or it's not working, or maybe just desperation. You know, there are fans who are just so desperate, and I get it. I mean, I went and saw and was excited. I got up at 6 a.m. on a Saturday to stand in the lines for tickets to Man of Steel because I didn't know, and I was so hopeful. And even knowing that there was probably no Lois and Clark and Superman triangle, and seeing that suit, I still had hope. And then I saw the movie. You know, I still gave the New 52 a try because I really, and that was it. I was like, yeah, I'm not doing this anymore because I've been disappointed enough. And you can't fix some things if they're intrinsically flawed. They can't be repaired.
Yeah.
You know? So, well, I don't know. I think that's it for movie and television news. That brings us to Toy Fair. Toy Fair was a delight. I was waiting for the Mattel reveals, and then thankfully we saw much better stuff, ironically enough, from DC Collectibles. They are now putting articulation in their figures. They've got the new Icons line, and they put out pictures at Toy Fair of this gorgeous 2-pack. It's going to be Superman, but instead of just all costumed and looking normal, he's battered, bruised, bloodied, his costume's in tatters, and he's comes on a diorama base with Doomsday, and you can recreate their climactic battle from Superman 75, and it also comes with a little peg to put the tattered cape on, and it's just a thing of beauty, and it's not a statue, and they're not figures that you can't pose. They're fully posable, multiple heads for Superman.
Yeah.
You can do the dead. You can actually do that Action Comics cover that was the front page of the Daily Planet, Superman Dead, and you can recreate that, which maybe seems morbid, but you know, that storyline to me is just it's really what made me the huge DC and of course Superman fan. It really rekindled that for me, so I'm thrilled. This is the 75th anniversary of that story. Or God, I did it again. I said that earlier today. We're not that old. You know, I hope to be around for the 75th anniversary. It's not likely. It's the 25th anniversary, so hopefully DC will be doing a lot of things to tie into that, and they won't just kind of let it go off to the side. And I think this is the first thing we've seen. It's a great commemorative piece. We've also got the Superman number 233, which is a Neil Adams cover. It was the first issue of Kryptonite No More, which was the original Sand Superman story, and they've put out a full-color statue, and it looks beautiful.
Yeah.
And then we did finally see the Rebirth Superman figure from Mattel, which looks good. Not as good as, I think, the Icon stuff. There's going to be a 7-pack of all the Rebirth Justice League figures.
Oh, that's cool.
And they look really great, with the exception of the Flash, who has all those extraneous lines.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know how to feel about that, but I do want that pack, but it's $100, so it's not going to probably be mine for a while.
Yeah.
You saw all of these. Any thoughts on these?
Well, I agree with everything you said there. I also really enjoyed the Super Sons. The fact that they had them, and you know, you and I are on the same page, I think, with Damian. Neither of us are particularly fond of his character, but I think that having him with John, it kind of gives him something. There's at least a reason for Damian to be there, you know,
right.
With the interplay and the dynamic between him and John. So I liked. I think the figures look pretty cool for them too.
They do, and it's amazing to me that he's already getting a figure, Jonathan Kent, and because Damien's had a few, but that Jonathan is already getting one because he's only really been around maybe a year. So that's a testament to this character and how popular he is, and I'm just really happy to see that because for so many years, Superman can't be married, and we certainly can't give him a kid. It was very much the Joe Quesada idea of, we'll have to erase the marriage, which we saw with Spider-Man, and here he's allowed to have a son, and he's such a great character. I love Jonathan. He really is. Yeah, he could have been an annoying character, but Jurgens really did a great job with him, and Tomasi does, I think, even better over in Superman. So, excited to see that. Also, this had been out before, but there were new images of the Superman animated series figures, which are going to be coming out in, I believe, August. And there's a Superman Lois 2-pack, which looks really great. So we need a Lois figure. So it's great to get that version of her. So,
and then the last thing that is the CW figures from that universe. The one for Supergirl actually looks a lot like her. The design looks pretty good. I mean, there are little things I would tweak about the suit, in general, but this really does look like the character from television show come to life, or come to non-animate,
right?
Life, or being in a figurine. So good likeness there.
Which is great because the Mattel one, I don't know if you've seen it. I finally saw one on the pegs recently. The Mattel multiverse version's been out for a while, and it doesn't.
Oh, really?
Looks like her head melted when they were pulling it from the mold or something. Because it just doesn't look like Melissa Benoist, but here the DC Collectibles looks much better. So it's just going to be a great year, I think, for action figures and Superman in particular. So it's time to start selling whatever we can, children, pets, whatever we got to sell. I would be glad to sell my cat $20. Anybody's interested, text me. Hell, I'll give them to you, but I need the money. So. Well, kids, we're going to take a break. When we get back, we'll dive right into our discussion. It's if we were sports fans, and you might be. I know nothing about sports, except that I'm not interested enough to watch. Oh, I like basketball. But I was going to say this is the Superman Reborn pregame, but I don't know if that's accurate because I am a nerd. But we're going to
right there with you.
I don't know. I guess a pregame obviously is before the game, but I don't know if that's what this is.
At some point before they go out in the basketball field, they do something or another.
Yes. Yeah, that's what this is then. So we're going to talk about our hopes for Superman Reborn, what we hope to get out of it, what our theories are regarding what it's going to actually be, and then we're going to briefly talk about the New 52 Superman because there's a strong, I think, likelihood with Rebirth. We've seen this happen. I mean, we didn't see the New 52 Wally West burst into flame or disappear. So there's a pretty good chance New 52 Superman and Lois will count in some way. And I have a new theory, which we didn't talk about earlier today, that I'll throw at you that I read about recently. And I thought, that could also be a way to go. So we'll do that when we get back.
Nice.
Superheroes are modern-day mythology. Well, so what? Just how do Superman, Batman, and Spider-Man operate in the way of Heracles, Vishnu, or Odin? And why is that important? Tune into Iconicast and join 3 school teachers and lifelong geeks as we research, review, and discuss the iconic influence these characters have on our culture. Subscribe on iTunes or sign up for the notifications at iconicastpodcast.com. That's iconicastpodcast.com. Stay iconic.
All right, we're back. So Superman Reborn starts. If you are not now, I think we should say this. If you haven't been following the comics, and I've seen this on message boards, people are saying the Superman comics are the most confusing comics currently in publication by any company. And I just kind of wanted to tap the mic on the message board and go, excuse me, have you read Spider-Man?
Exactly.
Did you see that they just brought back every character that has ever died from clones yet again and then killed them in the same series? And that there are 2 Spider-Men and there's one from another Earth. And believe me, it's nothing compared to what's going on over there.
Yeah.
But if you haven't been following, and maybe some people have said, I'm not going to pick anything up until Reborn because I'm tired of all this mystery stuff, then Superman Reborn #1 comes out Wednesday, March 1st, and it's a 4-issue series that will address all of these mysteries, and from what we've seen in solicits and interviews with creators, put it to rest, while also opening up new avenues, because we know there is a 4-part Aftermath, which is going to be in April, and that's going to also, I think, tie in somehow with the Batman Flash revelations that are going to be going on there, the Button crossover there. So before we get into Reborn, I think we'll just briefly talk about some of the good. Now, to give you my background, and Michael and I have talked about this before, I was in, I guess I can't really throw stones when I live in a glass house, because I was in that sense, or in that stage of desperation myself. When the reboot came, the New 52, I hated it, but then I thought, okay, Grant Morrison, and I want to read Superman comics again and enjoy them, and I really was let down by some. I have to be honest, some of Grounded, not all of it. Everybody seems to say it was all terrible. No, it wasn't. There was some good stuff in Grounded.
Yeah, definitely.
There was stuff that was really great before Grounded,
Yeah. So
I was not completely disenfranchised with the whole DCU, and I didn't think we needed a reboot. But I tried it because I thought, all right, maybe I'm being inflexible. It is Grant Morrison. Let me see. And there were some things that I did like about it. Michael, you, as you've said before, didn't give any of it. You didn't read any of it.
I didn't, and I've looked at it a little bit. You've really kind of sold me on some of the merits, I have to say. For me, it was just I couldn't separate it from being as part of this reboot and part of everything else that was going on and the other story runs. I just couldn't. We both said, I think, that this Grant Morrison's Action Comics run would just be in a wonderful Elseworlds or Superman Earth 1. And I just continued to look at it as like, no, this is what they're trying to remake my Superman into, and I resisted that and didn't like it. Really trying to put the now in hindsight anyway, where we can do that, putting on the goggles of let's just see what this is for its own sake, see what kind of cool ideas it is, and see what kind of alternate take it is, and it's quite satisfying in that respect. So you've really kind of brought me around to it a little bit.
Well, I'm glad I could do that, and it's weird I'm not an apologist at all for the New 52, but, I really love Grant Morrison. As much as he's hit or miss for me, like his Batman stuff, I would just rather forget, because it always frustrated me. Here's Grant Morrison on Batman, and then right next door was Paul Dini on Detective, doing the best Batman comics we had seen in years.
Yeah.
And yet everybody's talking about Grant Morrison. I thought, no. Batman Inc., no thank you. But what Dini did was tremendous. I mean, that stuff you can hand to anybody, and especially, have you read the Joker, the Robin Joker issue that Paul Dini did?
Oh, yeah. That was Dini. Everything Dini touches is gold, in my opinion. Yes. I've never read a Dini story I didn't like. And with Morrison, I'm sorry, were you finishing what you're saying, though?
No, I was going to, I'm the same way. Anything he does is great.
Yeah, and with Morrison, I think I'm with you too. It's some things are wonderful. All-Star Superman, of course, that's the iconic Superman. I think in general, he's an amazing idea guy. He has the coolest ideas for the most part. Sometimes they're not so great, like you were saying, Batman Inc. and so forth. But for the most part, his ideas are wonderful. It really comes to the execution. Where it needs to be a coherent kind of integrated plot, where sometimes it just seems like random things pop up in the next issue that are never really grounded, previously, or just kind of sort of mechanisms, to move something in this way or that way. So that's my wary eye going into anything Morrison writes, that I look for. But yeah, I'm like you, kind of hit or miss. He's done some wonderful stuff, and then some stuff that I'm just not too crazy about.
Right, like I would say DC 1 Million, which I did not read all of, but it's one of those series I want to go back and just read the main series. I read the Superman-related issues. What a great premise, and it was all about Superman. He really was a love letter to Superman. And then, of course, All-Star. There's some weird stuff in All-Star that I read it and I go, okay, well, I don't know. But that I read in pieces, and when I went and read the whole thing, because I read it as it came out, and then there was like a year delay before it finished. So when I read it as a whole, it just, to me, it's just pure joy. I mean, it really is a great, and it's sad. What I don't like about it is it's the last story of Superman. But I like it much better as the last story of Superman than any other last story of Superman.
Very true.
I certainly am not a fan of Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow. I know a lot of people consider that a classic. I just don't like it at all. So what I loved about this when I read it was, even though this shouldn't be happening. I didn't want this rebirth. This reboot. I did like some of the ideas. So for me, what worked and what I think, if we're going to see the theories that are happening, and one of them I mentioned earlier that we didn't talk about earlier today, is that instead of it being two separate Supermen, because there's been the Superman Red and Blue theory that one of those guys never really came back, and whoever's behind the New 52 Superman made that extra Superman into the New 52 Superman. Some theories have been that he is Superboy Prime. I had that theory myself for a while. Some people think he's from another Earth. I think that would be a little too convoluted. But then there's also the time theory that because Superman and Lois had been taken by Brainiac at the moment Flashpoint happened, that maybe these New 52 versions of Superman and Lois are from a different point in the timeline. They're younger versions pulled forward in time from the past. So that would mean the New 52 Superman and Lois are the pre-Flashpoint versions, but earlier, younger, and then remade, given a new history. And that they're going to be folded back into the new, the pre-Flashpoint timeline to make this new Superman that will always have been one guy, and that anybody can then start reading and understand his past. So, and that's really what I'm hoping. So if they do that, here's what I would like to see them keep from New 52 Superman by Morrison. None of the stuff by anybody else was worth keeping at all. Although I will defend George Perez did have a cool idea with the Daily Planet. It was really Bronze Age. It's not original, but he turned the Daily Planet into a multimedia conglomerate. So you had Clark working for the print edition. Lois was kind of over the print and TV. Then there was a web edition, and so that I thought was contemporary. It addressed the complaint a lot of people say, why would Clark Kent and Lois Lane still be working? Newspapers are dead. Well, they're not. They've evolved, but they're still there. So that was one good thing. But here's what Morrison did that was, I think, genius. So we start off with this Golden Age power set for the New 52 Superman. He can't fly. He's got this proto costume, which is kind of cool because I always looked at it as kind of a validation of a lot of Superman fans wear a Superman t-shirt often. So it was kind of like he was a fan of himself in a way, because he wore a t-shirt and jeans, and he threw on the cape, which was his blanket from Krypton, which, of course, is a hearkening back to the Silver Age. He is a defender of the weak and helpless. Much ado has been made about that, and I don't know whether or not, we talked about it earlier, and we'll come back to that idea. He's always been a defender, though, as we said, of the weak and helpless by virtue of being Superman. We saw a Silver Age Krypton, so it wasn't the John Byrne, cold Krypton where they're going to send off a womb instead of a born child. He was actually, like the Silver Age, young Kal-El, as a toddler, had actually begun to learn to speak, and he remembered Krypton, which was a nice touch. And then we have him work. This is where I think if you were going to do a movie, and I've always said this would make a great movie because it would show people who think, oh, I know everything about Superman. I've seen all the other movies and the TV shows, and you can't show me anything new at this point. Yes, you can. Because in this New 52 early version of Superman, he worked at the Daily Star for a while, which was a neat way of bringing in the Golden Age and making it part of the narrative. So he worked at the Daily Star for George Taylor. He was rivals with Lois Lane, and it made a little more sense because they weren't at the same place rivaling each other. They were competing papers. And instead of Superman's pal, Jimmy Olsen, which of course still did happen, you had Clark Kent's best friend, Jimmy Olsen, and they lived together. They were in an apartment for a while, and then Clark went off and got his own apartment. So I thought a lot of that was genius. There are some moments in this run, this first arc from Grant Morrison, the first 8 issues, I should say, that just scream movie, that they would have you cheering if they happened in a movie. Superman or any other character, but they're really perfect Superman moments. One of them is where Dr. Lex Luthor, in this version, he manipulates train schedules and other events to get Superman right at this certain place in Metropolis, and he uses a speeding bullet train that he derails to smash Superman into the side of a skyscraper, knocking him unconscious. So what a genius twist on faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, right?
Yeah.
And I thought that's a pure Lex Luthor genius moment. And then you also have this moment where Superman isn't flying yet. he's leaping great distances, and he has to get into space because Metropolis has been miniaturized. More Silver Age references there. So he leaps up this trailer, this semi-trailer. He uses that as a ramp and shoots up into the atmosphere, and then he lands on and kicks off from a satellite, and then lands at the Collector of Worlds ship, which is a sentry of Brainiac. And I'm reading this going, this needs to be in a movie. All of this could be in an iconic Superman movie because it could still fit into, his early days.
Yeah.
And then we had even the suit origin, which I thought, other than it being armor, was kind of a neat way, because he finds a suit in the Kandorian city that's been miniaturized by Brainiac as well. So there were a lot of things in here that Morrison did that were really genius, but they were undermined by the fact that they were part of a reboot. So I think if they fold this in, I could live with, okay, so he worked at the Daily Star, then went to the Daily Planet. I could live with him having dated Wonder Woman, and then, of course, fell in love with Lois, because that's happened before.
Yeah.
We've seen that dalliance in the past. So a lot of that would be fine. I don't think the angst-ridden stuff would fit, of course, and has no business being part of Superman. So any other parts, any other things you think would really work?
Yeah, well, this is going to seem a little minor compared to the great stuff you were just saying there, but just the fact that they really returned to the idea of Metropolis as the city of tomorrow. Keep saying that, and just having that phrase in there, and then it also carries over to Superman. As he will be the man of tomorrow. So. Man of Steel, long before the film, kind of tainted that phrase. Yeah. That was a great moniker for Superman, because it spoke to the wonders, that he could do, just bending steel and such. But the Man of Tomorrow, I think, is really more true to his his nature as a character and what he does for us as a mythological being. So that idea of being there, pointing us to tomorrow, and then having the city of Metropolis. It wasn't flat out Art Deco in the artwork of this Action Comics run, but it wasn't dark. I appreciated the sort of bright, shiny look, and I forget the guy who did the art on those first few issues, but I really appreciated that. Other than that, I thought Grant Morrison just is one person who really knows how to handle Jimmy Olsen, because Jimmy Olsen is a character. We know that, of course, Zack Snyder just completely wrote him off, shot him in the head for all, saying he wouldn't fit in our universe, and just completely missed the incredible importance of the character. The character is there as a way in for us fans. It's kind of like the fanboy of Superman, but if Superman pays attention to Jimmy, we feel like, if it's done right, we feel like he's paying attention to us. Now, we need to have that in a story, but it is easy for that to get a little thin, and it is easy for that to get a little stale. But Morrison has always been able to retain that aspect, yet still really, round out Jimmy and give him some three dimensions. So he did that with All-Star Superman, Jimmy Olsen in that, and I can see that in what I've read so far of the Action Comics run as well.
Yeah, Jimmy is a character who is not, because there was kind of a caricature at one point where Jimmy was just there to be saved, kind of like we saw with Lois at one point, where it's just, he was a functionary of the plot, and here he's an actual character who is really given depth, and he has this relationship with Clark that I would love to see carry over. And in the New 52 comics, eventually Superman revealed, or Clark revealed, that he's Superman to Jimmy, and so I'm wondering if that's going to carry over into whatever happens after Reborn. But I kind of think that it should, because if anybody should be let in on the secret, Jimmy,
Yeah.
And I was saying this on a message board too. I kind of think that it would be very fitting if you did a last Superman story and you had it come out, all of these people in his life who he's trying to protect by having this secret identity they knew he was Superman, but because they loved him so much and they wanted to protect him, they always kept his secret. And I thought, man, wouldn't that be a touching way to show that, because these are investigative journalists. Yeah. So, it wouldn't be that surprising for Perry White and for Jimmy, and of course Lois figures it out, but for them to go, hey, he is Superman, and we know, and we're going to help him by keeping his secret. He's done so much for us. We're going to do this for him. That's me,
cool, yeah.
That would be a neat twist to do. But they didn't go that route. Jeff Johns wrote the issues where Clark reveals to Jimmy that he is Superman, and he does it in a nice way because he says, I should have told you this from the beginning. So it was kind of him admitting that if I could trust anybody, it would be you because you're my best friend. Mm-hmm. So, there has been this bigger focus on Jimmy Olsen, which is great. Yeah, absolutely. And we also talked, the last time we recorded, we talked about Superman Zero, or Action Comics Zero, the boy who stole Superman's cape.
Yes. Yeah, I was saying that's such a cool idea. I thought that was it was really a metaphor. So this boy has Superman's cape, and he uses it to defend himself from his abusive father. The cape, of course, as you were saying, is from Krypton, is from his spaceship, the blanket. So he puts it around him and his brother when his father's attacking them, and it doesn't harm them because of that. And then he even has the cape kind of wrapped around his fist when he punches his father away or something to get them away. So that protection is there. And then, of course, later Superman, comes in and actually saves the boy himself, which is a wonderful moment. Even saves him from a train, when that's always iconic. But then tells the young boy, thanks for keeping this for me or whatever. And I just thought that's such a great picture that, as we as Superman fans, we take little pieces of him with us. We can never be him because he's that pure aspirational, standard, but we can take pieces of him from different readings and really try and, work that in our lives. And when we do that, when we take those wonderful, iconic traits and try and, use those in life, they will help us, and I thought that was a great picture of that.
Absolutely. Literally being able to have somebody put on Superman,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and take his, because that kid didn't necessarily know the cape was indestructible, but it was Superman's cape. So he felt, I'll be okay because I've got Superman, a part of Superman with me. Yeah. See, that's when those moments happen, it's like Grant Morrison can do no wrong,
Absolutely, yeah.
That's one of, I think, the gems of any of his stuff with Superman that he's done. And so, I would want to keep that story in this new going forward continuity. If that's what we're going to see, that would be a great moment. Maybe see, what is this kid up to now? Maybe he wants to thank Superman. I mean, you could just go so many places with that.
Oh, yeah.
So we saw that happen in the Death of Superman. We had this punk kid, Mitch, who nobody likes, and then he doesn't like Superman. And that I thought was a brilliant thing in the Death of Superman. You had Mitch kind of be the voice of fans who thought, oh, Superman's not as cool as Youngblood or Spawn or Wolverine. And then he comes in and saves Mitch and his family, and Mitch, when Superman dies, goes and pays tribute to him and wants to say, I'm sorry, at his memorial statue, and he eventually becomes a superhero himself. He gets powers. So that could be something they could run with that story as well. So there's a lot of great stuff there, and whether we're going to see that kind of put into this one Superman's history, we don't know yet. We're going to see. My computer just froze on me. That's not good. Oh boy. All right, okay, we're just going to pretend everything's fine, and it's still working.
I'm backup recording, if nothing else.
Yes, I hope that's working. I don't know why it froze. I don't know. My mouse is not moving the cursor. Oh boy. All right, I won't panic. So, we'll take a short break. When we get back, we're going to dive right into Reborn. All right, so we're back. So, last issue of Action Comics, perhaps one of the most frustrating in recent memory. I wanted to have Superman's cape at that moment so I could punch a wall and destroy it, because I actually was supposed to go do something important, pick up my children from school, and I risked them being fine. They were okay. They would have just gone to after school care and played outside, but I risked that to go and get this issue because I thought we're going to find out who Clark is, and not so much. Instead, we have him learning that Lois has been lying, that she is married to this lookalike. She's married to the other Superman. Of course, he was never Superman, he claims, this mystery Clark Kent. And then he finds out that Jonathan is his son, or is Lois's son, and something's triggered, and he says, I remember now what's been taken from me, I think is what he says. So, who the heck is this guy? What are your feelings on that issue?
Well, I keep going back to this scene. I'm looking at it now, even now that you're describing it. And in the end there, he says, I remember all of it. You've ruined my life, ruined everything. And when I first read that, for some reason, I just thought he was talking about our Superman in there with, you know, what he thinks of as his Lois or whatever. But now I'm realizing, oh, that's probably he's talking about whether it's Dr. Manhattan or Ozymandias, you know, Dr. Oz, Mr. Oz. You know, so he's alluding to this this puppet master who's, you know, messed with the universe. And I don't know. I don't have any, you know, real flat out theories about it, but it does just ultimately play into this idea. You know, we've talked, I think we mentioned last time how Rebirth really is essentially DC kind of apologizing for the New 52 in many ways, and admitting that they got it wrong and trying to infuse, as Jeff Johns said, you know, heart and soul back into the universe. And it makes so much sense if Dr. Manhattan's involved here, and if maybe he's the one that Clark is talking about. I mean, Dr. Manhattan is somebody who gained, you know, godlike powers, but completely lost touch with his humanity. So it would make sense that if he tried to reform a world or create a world, as he said he was going to do at the end of Watchmen, that it would be without a soul, as New 52 so much of it was, you know? So I don't know. That really doesn't give you anything on the theories about who this Clark is, but it's something else that just kind of clicked in place as you were talking about this scene.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and if he would not understand the most soulful character of all, right, or being Superman, so of course he couldn't remake him correctly. Yeah, that's a great connection, and I wonder who is responsible for the New 52 Superman, because we've seen these wonderful Gary Frank variants for the Superman Reborn issues, and on one of the covers we see a mysterious character. We see the New 52 Superman in the foreground, and then we see these hands with robes, so I'm taking that to mean it's Ozymandias. I mean, it's Oz, Mr. Oz.
Yeah.
And then, but his hood is down, and the face is blacked out, but you see a little bit of hair, and so I'm wondering if we're going to find out, okay, this is who Oz is. And I still think Oz, there's no way that they would set all this up and say, oh, no, it's not really Ozymandias. I mean, at this point, doesn't it kind of have to be him?
Yeah, it would be cheap if they didn't let it go ahead and be him.
Right,
yeah.
Because they've already said they're bringing in, and they've already used the Watchmen stuff, so why not go all the way there? Yeah, I don't know. We do know that in the New 52 run, Johns came in briefly and did he tried to course correct as much as he could, but now we know he was kind of threading the needle for Rebirth, because he introduced Mr. Oz, and Mr. Oz in those issues said, Clark, I always taught you how to get back up. So there's this sense that he created the New 52 Superman, or at least had something to do with his training. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that still begs the question. So is the Mystery Clark related at all to the other two Supermen? I thought initially when he first appeared that he was just some kind of manipulation going on. Now I'm starting to wonder if he's an aspect of Superman that is going to be rejoined. This is a theory that's out there. And you know, the Superman Red Blue theory is still being put out there. We've talked about it before. I still think maybe it's going to play some role. In Superman Forever, when that storyline came to an, I think, abrupt end, you have Superman Blue going out, or he's going under the Earth to expel his energy, and then you have Superman Red going into space, and it's one of these guys falls back to Earth restored. And so did it literally happen that one Superman was left behind, or is it the essence of Superman? And is that maybe what Oz or Dr. Manhattan made a new Superman? We just don't know. So I'm so excited finally as we move into what do we want to see from Reborn. I want to see an end to this mystery. I'm ready to move forward.
Absolutely.
It has been fun. It has been exciting, but it's also, I think it's putting off a lot of people who are thinking, how am I supposed to understand this? You know? And as we talk about it, it makes sense to us, but even it's a bit of a stretch. I've got to say, New 52, pre-Flashpoint, Superman Red and Blue. I mean, you know, at some point, we need to simplify all of this. So,
yeah.
Any specific things you want to see going forward that Reborn needs to do for you?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing we talked about before is that for me, I really feel like it needs to let Superman know that this is not a new universe. He needs to have the same realization that Wally has, that this is my world. It's just something has gone wrong. Something, 10 years have been stolen or whatever. He's been taken away from it for a portion of time. But then, as you were saying too, they've got so many loose threads to try to make sense now with all that they did in Convergence. And now having that make sense with the Superman Rebirth and the universes that they've got going on here, I do see some thematic things kind of falling into place, which excite me, but I just really hope they all get addressed and tied up well. But the character of Blanc, the villain that I guess Dan Jurgens first had him come in there with the Lois and Clark run,
Right.
The telepath or from space. What a great character. And I'm really, and of course in this last issue of Action Comics, he's released from Superman's fortress that he had him imprisoned there. He gets released from that, and he's an incredibly dangerous villain. I mean, Superman, it was a big deal catching him the first time, but I thought, wait a minute, this is a character, he's pure evil, but he's all white. His name is Blanc. This is like the tabula rasa, this is the, everything wiped clean. This is, it plays into the theme of, let's wipe your history and remake you or whatever, and having that come from a villain, I think, I don't know how much that's going to tie in, but it struck me as something that could be a pretty strong, and nicely developed theme in it anyhow. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, because who is this guy? And we don't know much about him. He's not somebody that was ever featured in any other New 52 comic, so we know only those few things that we saw in Lois and Clark. And it's interesting, you mentioned white, and in the solicits for the Aftermath, there's going to be some kind of Superman black. All right, now we don't know what that means or who that is, but what's very interesting is one of the solicits for the Aftermath, or it may even be later in the May issues, says that Jonathan Kent is going to be made to ask this question: what's so funny about truth, justice, and the American way? That he's going to actually be somehow manipulated to question his father's adherence to the no-kill rule. They actually come out and say that. So
oh my gosh,
yeah, that's gonna, and I don't know, I hope they don't, I don't think they'll turn an 11-year-old into a killer. I would hope at this point that would be something they wouldn't do, and I don't think it is. But somebody on a message board also pointed out that there's been this black swamp. Remember the haunted swamp that Kathy and John didn't want to go through, and that has played a role in the Hamilton stories that we've seen in the Superman title. And so some speculation is Manchester Black involved?
That's what I was just thinking.
Yeah.
Could he be Blanc? Because they're both
Blanc?
Telepaths and telekinesis and everything.
So could he have been remade into this guy? And
wow, you blew my mind.
Yeah, well, it blew my mind when I read it, because I thought, okay, I never would have brought up Manchester Black, but when somebody pointed out that solicit, I thought, okay, Black Swamp. So are we going to see him? Is he maybe someone in league with Oz or in league with Dr. Manhattan? And, we know there's going to be a Superman Revenge Squad in May. I think we're going to see, and it's going to be Mongol. It's also going to be the pre-Flashpoint version of Hank Henshaw, so it's not the new Zor-El Cyborg Superman. And so how are they going to all play together? How is this all coming in, and why do we have new versions and then the old versions of these characters? So very interesting stuff there. And Manchester Black, one of the great villains. That sadly they kind of tried to make him. Let's make him. Wasn't he in Task Force X, or was it Justice League Elite? I think they called it.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Justice League Elite, I think it was, yeah.
I didn't care for that. Let's try to make him an operative. But he is, that's one of the greatest stories ever told.
Absolutely.
Action 775. So if they bring him in, that is going to be great. And maybe he is Blanc. He's going, that's a nice
would be amazing.
play. Yeah, it's the opposite of my old name.
You're right. That fits. Please let this happen.
Yes, because if I remember correctly, when they were fighting in that town in the Lois and Clark issues, wasn't he taunting him, trying to get Superman to kill him? Because
I believe so. Man, I want to go back and read those now. Yeah, I think this really is onto something. I think this could be it.
It could be.
Wow.
And what a great character to bring in, because he could be using his powers to manipulate reality in some way too.
And also with just as thematically linked is Dr. Manhattan and kind of the being without soul. I mean, the New 52 Superman in many ways was the elite styled Superman, not completely, not totally, but it definitely crossed those lines and really went much more over in that direction. Whereas in What's So Funny About Truth, Justice, and the American Way, Superman was resisting all of that, and it was all about, no, I am pure, I am going to be true to my values and stuff. So wow.
That's right. Yeah. So that would be a wonderful villain to bring in. And we have not, I don't know if he was ever used in the New 52. Because I
don't know either. No,
I read very little of it, so that could be great. So we'll see where that's going. And like you, I just want answers. I know we won't find out all the answers until Aftermath. And as we talked about earlier today, I still think there are things that have to unravel or have to coalesce even more. And I think that's going to happen in Action 1000. And so, as we said, I think as Superman goes, so goes the restoration of the DC Universe.
Absolutely.
So my dream is, and maybe it's a pipe dream, I don't care, I'm holding on to hope. I know that Dan Jurgens is a huge fan of the classic uniform and the trunks. He's defended it. He said that it's even not trunks, it's sewn into the costume. We already saw it in one issue of Action laying out on the bed, and John asks, why don't you wear that anymore? So I'm hoping in Action 1000 we get it. That would be tremendous.
That would be good. There was one moment, did you catch it in the I think it was the Rebirth Christmas issue that John and Clark go to his fortress, and they actually take the belt from his old costume to create a dog collar for Krypto, and that was his gift. And I was kind of like, as sweet as that is, no, don't ruin that costume. You
right.
know?
No, you see, I didn't read that issue. So, that's cool, but also not cool.
I know, that's exactly my reaction to it.
Maybe he'll go and say, Krypto, I need that back. You know?
Yeah,
I mean, that would be a great... Wow. Okay, so he's kind of moved into that fortress then? Because I didn't realize that. I guess he's in the New 52 Superman's fortress.
Oh no, this was his own fortress that he created, because he had his own suit like on display there, his old suits and stuff.
Okay. And was there any sign of the Superman blue suit by any chance, or no?
I didn't see it. I'll have to go back and look just to be sure. Because
in those early Action issues that Grant Morrison wrote, you see the Superman blue suit in the background. It's in a case.
That's right. Yeah.
Fortress. And Morrison said in interviews, the New 52 Superman is kind of everything that's happened to all the other versions has happened to him. You just don't see it all happen, because you couldn't, right? It would be too much. And then he even alludes that this guy evolves into All-Star Superman, which I always thought, okay, that's where you lost me. There's no way this guy's going to evolve into that version. But maybe that's what they're basing Rebirth on. I mean, I don't know if that's something with Reborn they're going to say, this guy has experienced it all. It's happened to him, and we're going to combine these histories. So that's what I want to see revealed at last.
Yeah.
So anything else about Reborn before we wrap it up?
I'm very excited about the changes they're going to make to the costume. Again, we talked about it before, but even though I do want the trunks back, I am glad to see those weird sleeve scales, go away from the Man of Steel look. I'm glad to see proper red boots back, and even though the trunks aren't there, I'm glad to see both red and yellow in a proper solid belt.
Right, although it's still, to me, is so weird looking, because I don't know if you saw the Gary Frank variant for the last issue of Reborn, and it's Gary Frank's beautiful art, but even he can't make it look not weird. It's like this weird metal red zigzag, and then there's a yellow buckle at the top, and I don't know. I mean, I think they really have to realize we got to do better than this. So maybe it's all transitional. But
issue 1000, like you're saying,
right? Please let that and. I was even saying on a message board, give me 1,000 variants. I would have to sell so much stuff to buy 1,000 variants, because that comes out to quite a bit of money. But man, wouldn't that be cool? You could do different media covers. You could do Christopher Reeve cover. You could do animated series.
Wonderful.
I'm sure they'd have to do a Man of Steel. I would just wouldn't buy that variant. So. Yeah, this I think is just wonderful, and I still need somebody to pinch me, or I don't want anybody to wake me up, to be quite honest, if this is a dream. I just never imagined any of this would happen.
It's so
5
great.
years ago. So it's phenomenal. And I think as we see Superman getting back more in line with who and what he should be, we will also see the DCU go that way. So that's exciting stuff. I do want to point this out, and we didn't mention it earlier. The DC summer event, we don't know what it's going to be. There are rumors here and there it's going to involve Batman. There's a shocker. But that Batman is at the forefront of it. And that the summer event is going to flow out of the Button storyline. So,
oh, good.
We've seen these lenticular covers for the Batman and Flash crossover, and it looks cool. And there's a new one that was revealed that shows Professor Zoom, who was at the heart of Rebirth, of Flashpoint, reaching for the button, and then in a bright flash of blue light, he's disintegrated. So, interesting. Was Manhattan manipulating Professor Zoom to cause Flashpoint? That's kind of a suggestion there, because he needed a way to do it, perhaps. So, very interesting stuff. So I think we're going to see a lot of that as we hit that 1-year anniversary of Rebirth. We're going to see a lot more of that get answered along with the Superman part of it. So very cool stuff. Well, all right, kids, we're going to take a break, and when we get back, we'll wrap up this episode. Hi, folks. My name's Chris Moe. I put the Chris Moe in a mostly weekly podcast called The Big Show with Chris Moe. The Big Show is a unique blend of late-night comedy stylings, the latest geek and pop culture news and commentary, movie, TV, and comic book reviews, and more. You can find The Big Show at thebigshow.com, show spelled S-H-E-A-U-X, on iTunes by simply typing in S-H-E-A-U-X, on Facebook at facebook.com/The Big Show, Twitter at Big Show, and Big Show video spelled V-I-D-E-A-U-X, on YouTube. Please tune in and be sure to share The Big Show with Chris Moe with people you know. And we're back, and we want to thank you so much for being here. Thanks to all those folks out there who have been loyal listeners, to Ben Woods, of course. And Ben, this one's on YouTube, and we aren't going to have any more other episodes, any other format outside of YouTube, because it's just not working. I don't know what's going on with Podomatic, but it wasn't linking up with iTunes. So when I upload to YouTube, it goes to iTunes. So everybody's happy, and I don't have to pay for another hosting site, and that makes me happy. So any shout-outs or updates or anything?
Just as mentioned before, updates. My book is still on its way. All of the edits are completed. The blurbs are almost in from people who are endorsing it, and I'm close to getting the ISBN number because I'm going to be promoting it at some cons this summer. But again, for those who haven't heard, it's a book about the inspiration that superhero stories can provide for our lives. And Superman, of course, leads us off with the very first chapter. And so it's a good story like that. I am going to look into, a lot of people have asked me about the course I teach, in superhero fiction and our heroic fiction and superheroes included. And I am going to put together some outlines and handouts from my course and kind of revise them all up to flow as one little booklet. And I think I'm going to try something like giving that away for those who pre-order the book or something, maybe in digital format or nothing. I'll have to figure out how I want to do that. But that's coming. So I always want to keep that bugging the listeners' ears.
Absolutely.
Self-promotion.
Yes, and well-deserved self-promotion, because it's not like it's a genius idea, and I honestly wish I'd have had it, but I'm glad that you did. I'm glad it's somebody good who had it and could do it justice.
Oh, thank you.
So I'm excited. I want to buy some copies and try to get my comic shop owners to maybe order some as well and put a few out, and because I just think it's a tremendous idea, and I think it's something that people need. I think they are searching for that, because you can look at the popularity of these characters when they're done right, and it's tapping into something that people need, especially now. We need so much more of this inspiration and positivity, so that's tremendous. How about, I know we've talked about it before, Iconicast, you had some, like we did earlier, you had some technical problems.
I know, which made us think all the more that Hank Henshaw was behind it. But the last... we did a Valentine's Day issue of Iconicast, and it was my stupid mistake. I did something, I think I know what I did on the computer, which stopped us from recording halfway through the episode. So then we didn't have time to fix it all before Valentine's Day. So now we're stuck with half of a Valentine's Day episode well after Valentine's Day, and nothing going forward. So by St. Patrick's Day, at some point here in the first week of March, I'm actually hoping we're going to record again. We're going to address the flub, and then we will piece in parts of what we were saying in that first episode, because I think we had talked about all the upcoming film slates and all kind of stuff and everything. So we will get it together. We'll have another Iconicast little social hour out soon, so that's coming.
Great. Well, looking forward to that. And speaking of well, let me first, just anybody, one or two of you who do maybe have gone to listen to The Big Show, and maybe you've wondered where is it? It's still there. I'm looking at some name change possibilities, and we're coming up on the 75th episode, not far off. But I don't know. I need to maybe reformat things. And certainly I need to look at putting some money into advertising, even though I don't know where that money's going to come from. I need to do it because I don't think it's getting the reach that I want it to, and I would like to see that happen. So we will have a new episode of The Big Show shortly, sometime in March for sure.
That's good.
I will be doing one, and I want to have you on as well. We still have some other topics, not necessarily Superman related, that we can talk about.
Oh, yeah.
So also you and I continue to talk about a network and names for the network and all these ideas. So if you've heard us talk about that, and if you've looked forward to that, continue to do so. We would really like to see that happen. It would benefit all of us, and we hope that we'd be able to give you much more content that way, and it would be under a unified vision. This is a big thing. I mean, I see more and more people with podcast networks, and let's just, I'm not naming names. Some of these people, I'm thinking, you shouldn't be doing a podcast because no one should really hear your voice, no offense. and I know I shouldn't say that because I'm in radio and I have a radio voice. I'm not trying to be critical, but anyway, I am being critical. But I think of all people who should have one, it's us. So we're working on that.
Yeah.
And we will definitely get back to you as we finalize that and figure it out. Also, as far as Superman Lives, the reason that we were so committed to doing, one of the reasons, we just enjoy doing it. So that was one reason. We both admitted that even though the last one failed, we still had a great time talking, and we do. So we are going to try, I am going to definitely get this out Reborn issue 1, which comes out Wednesday. So we're hoping you'll listen to this, and it's kind of a nice setup for Superman Reborn. If we can, we'll do a midway through, because I have a feeling those first 2 issues, based on the previews alone, a lot of stuff's going to happen in the first 2 issues. So if we can, we'll do a midway, and then we'll do a roundup of all 4, and if not, we'll be back in a month's time, and we'll do the roundup of all 4 of them. So
even just an abbreviated midway, we should be able to pull off at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. We just come in and don't talk about news. We go straight to those issues. So I think that's something we definitely have to do.
Yeah.
So guys, thanks so much for listening. And I know Michael said earlier that people have asked about the show, when it's coming back, or we're going to do more. So thank you so much. That means a lot that you guys like what we do. And so we hope that we will continue on this more. And I'm just rambling now because I'm always very bad at finishing. On my show too, I always have trouble wrapping things up. It's just a thing I have there. So, all right.
Long live Superman.
Long live Superman. Take care. Superman Lives can be found on YouTube, iTunes, the Superman Podcast Network at supermanpodcastnetwork.com, and on the podcast's Facebook page, Superman Lives Podcast. Send feedback, suggestions, and questions to hosts Chris Moe and Michael Kreitzer at supermanlivespodcast@gmail.com. All music featured in the Superman Lives broadcast is the intellectual property of Warner Brothers. Superman and all related characters are the intellectual property of DC Comics, a division of DC Entertainment. Superman Lives is intended solely for the purpose of entertainment and does not in any way profit from its production or content. Superman Lives is a production of Big Show Studios and Iconic Superman on Facebook.